Hey there guys, Elagatua here. I had a game with Bitcly earlier today, and he did a live stream or a live recording of that video, and I figured I also recorded the same game, and so I figured I'd give you guys a little post-mortem, more strategy-focused retrospective on this particular game. As you can see, the game's already been started here. I'm just dubbing over this, so apologize for the lack of discussion on the first turns here, but before we get started, if you haven't checked out Bitcly's YouTube, you should definitely check it out. It's Bitcly Plays, so Bitcoy Plays, so definitely give him a follow if you haven't done so already. He puts out videos much more frequently than I do as of late, and he's definitely worth checking out. So to start here, this is a Dark Elf against Dark Elf matchup, and I like to get Wraiths out early. They are great for eating things that are already dead, and around this time I'm thinking that he's going to poison my rat, and then I'll eat the rat and start going from there. So you see I've got the other Shadow Wraith in my hand, so there's potential for me to drop that one too if the opportunity presents it. But I'm a little bummed by this hand. I've got the knowledge, I forget what the full name of that card is, but basically it gives you +5 attack for 1 turn, but it does 3 damage to a staff character. And I like to use that, well, the only card I can use it with in this deck is the Rat King staff unit, which is a 1/6. But that combo is really powerful because when you use those 2 cards together in 1 turn, all in all, you can have a 9 mana 12 crystal damage card that is unblockable if you have all the cards in your hand at the right time, and especially on this map where the crystals positioned the way they are. It's really, really good. So that's what I'm trying to set up, but unfortunately I still haven't drawn the Rat King, and now that he's played his Terminus, now I'm desperately searching for my Acid Influx card, which as you can see now I don't get. So the best thing I can do is I'm thinking about putting the Wraith down and absorbing the rat, but even if I do that, it will still just let him kill that Wraith with the Terminus. So instead, I'm just going to drop the Curse on the Terminus to cycle some cards and hopefully draw an Acid Influx, and basically try to stall for time. Fortunately, his Terminus is on the other side of the board. He can't reach my crystals yet, so I have a little bit of time to try and draw Acid Influx next turn, and if I do, then I'm going to be in fine shape. So you see I'm playing defensively here because I just can't deal with Terminus. Terminus is a really, really good card in the current meta. He's 7 mana, 5/10. Every single deck that you run should pretty much have 2 Terminuses in it, no matter what squad you're in, until they inevitably nerf him, which will probably be coming before too long. So what he should do right here is he should run his Terminus right up into my guys, because he should have seen that I did not clear it with Acid Influx. If I had Acid Influx, I would have immediately cleared it right away, but instead he chooses to leave it back, and I think that's a strategic mistake. He could have put a lot of pressure on my crystals just by moving it up and saying, hey, you clearly don't have Acid Influx, so deal with this problem. So instead here, I get to play my bubbling pot or gurgle pot or whatever. It stinks to play it right now because I don't have the construct buff in my hand, but I want an easy way to clear the rat and also build up a little board here. And really all I'm trying to do here is keep his Terminus away from my crystals while I buy time to draw an Acid Influx. Now my Wraith is going to die in another turn or two, so I have 2 options. I can either let the Wraith stay back on my own side of the board, or I can kind of suicide him on his side of the board and hopefully make him have to spend something in order to deal with it instead of letting it die for free. So as you can see here, I'm just going to give the Terminus the Hug of Death and kind of hope that he has to spend time dealing with these units, allowing me to draw something good. Now you're going to see here that I've left open a really nice move that he does not take advantage of. He could have pushed his Terminus up 1 moving the rat one square back, and then attacked my Gurgle pot, which would have blown up the rat as well. Um, and that would have set his Terminus up to be in position to attack my crystals. And then he could have easily cleared the Wraith with doing 1 HP of damage, and then letting it die to the poison, and just ignoring my spider, which is only a 1/4 and can't really harm his crystals. But instead, he's going to decide to try and trade out, and so I think he missed an opportunity here to be more aggressive when his cards are a lot better. Um, he could have put me at a really, really strong disadvantage, and instead he plays a little more conservatively than he needed to, because I still haven't been able to show that acid influx, which is really the only counter to the Terminus that I have in my deck. So you see he's got the Rat King, so he could have, instead of what he did here, he could have played the Rat King up top on the top side of the board, still killed the Wraith and the Rat the same way, but also by keeping it on the top part of the board. In that top left corner, he could have saved it and kept it far enough away from the spider, and then also killed the rest of my units while leaving the Terminus in position. But now the Terminus is still stuck on his side of the board. And so even though I'm trading a little inefficiently, I haven't taken really any significant crystal damage, and I'm buying more time, buying more turns to draw the acid influx, which is going to be able to take out his Terminus, hopefully. I also need to deal with that Rat King. I don't know what his deck is like, and it's possible he also has a Knowledge Burn, and if he does have a Knowledge Burn, then on his next turn he could use it to do 12 damage to my crystal. So this guy has to die, and I need to take him out now. So I have to spend that defensively in order to take down his Rat Lord, which is unfortunate. It takes a big offensive key item, key combo in this deck. But if I hadn't done that, it's possible that I could have essentially taken game-losing damage in the next turn. But instead now I live to fight another day. So now he's finally going to get aggressive with this Terminus, about 4 turns later than he could have, but still it's still a fearsome threat, and he's going to stack the board with a lot of stuff and say, hey, you haven't really asserted yourself on the board at all in this game, so time to deal with the problem. Now this Arcane Bite is pretty useless because that's only useful against Council, essentially, so any other squad that I run up against, I pretty much discard it for free. And now this is a really rough turn for me. I can't deal with the Terminus. I don't have enough damage. I still haven't drawn any acid influxes despite trying to draw through my deck for it. So I'm just going to do the best thing that I can, which is getting this Child of Destiny out on the board to take care of his spider, which at least I can deal with. And then I will do as much damage to his Terminus as I can. And then hopefully I can actually just kill his Terminus in the future instead of spending an acid influx. And that will save that second acid influx in my deck later on in the game for something else that normally I would have had to save it for the Terminus. Getting through 10 damage on the Terminus is really brutal. That card is only 7 mana, but the amount of trouble it's caused me has paid for itself multiple times. So you can see the value that you can get out of Terminus if your opponent is not fortunate enough to draw into an acid influx. I cycled a bunch of cards here, still just trying to draw through a lot of cards to get an answer for this Terminus. I have a skeleton on his side of the board, and just trying to distract him however I can from doing kind of game-ending damage with the Terminus while he's on the side of the board. Fortunately, this turn, so I can get rid of this construct because both my Gurgle pots are dead, and it's a good thing I did because I drew Order Omnius, which is like the greatest card. He's in all of my decks, and this is going to allow me to clear both of the Rat and the Terminus off the board and leave me with a strong board. And despite now me being in a really rough shape with a really rough starting hand, and just being really behind for the entire game. Now all of a sudden he's got no units on the board, and I've got a really strong board where I can try to start to turn this thing around and pick up steam before we get into the overtime rounds, which in all likelihood we're headed to, considering it's round 8 and there's only been 6 crystal damage done in this game so far. So now that I've got my own Terminus in hand, I'm going to be looking for an opportunity to get that on the board. And the ideal opportunity for me to get a Terminus on the board is when my opponent has spent all of his mana, because the Poison Acid Influx combo requires 6 mana in total, so if he spent all of his mana, he will only start with 5. And that way I know that even if he has the Acid Influx in his hand, he's not going to have enough mana to actually pull it off. So I'm going to set up for that this turn by leaving myself 2 mana. And I thought about whether I wanted to push crystal damage or kill the giant rat, but really there's no reason not to just take out the giant rat. I don't have to push my range units forward too far to put them in danger, and I can still take out the rat and leave myself 2 mana for next turn, which will then allow me to potentially place the Terminus on the board depending on what happens. And if you're asking me, did you actually think about this during the game? The answer is yes. I was deliberately setting up to play Terminus this round, anticipating that he might have to spend a lot of mana this turn clearing off a board that is very stacked in my favor at the moment. So now he's going to think a while about how to clear my board. But now I've got my own Acid Influx, so if he places Terminus, his last Terminus, then I will be in a good position to clear that off. And my objective is to get crystal damage on him before overtime starts, because right now he's starting with a lead. And once overtime starts, it's really hard to sustain offense because everybody is just throwing stuff on the board with tons of mana. So he's going to play this ranged unit to clear off my order, but he did spend all of his mana, which now allows me to plop down Terminus, and I will happily be extremely aggressive with the Terminus. I think I should have played it actually on the rank above where I did, because it would have been harder for him to block access to the crystal that way. But it's not a huge deal. And really all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put so many things on the board that he can't kill them all, and then I'm going to push some crystal damage as a result. So I'm totally ignoring his unit, even though I know that he can trade out with my archer, because I know that I gotta get damage done in quick to set myself up for the end game. Especially since I've used a lot of my big combos. I can't look forward to that Rat King plus knowledge boost or whatever that card is. That's going to give me that 1 turn with a 6 attack ranged staff unit. So if I don't use this opportunity now to really take control of the game, I'm not going to have enough oomph left in this deck to push it over the finish line. Fortunately, I've got a really nice window here with his Terminus where I know he can't deal with it. So he takes out my archer and he's trying to block. And he's able to clear everything off but the Terminus, which is pretty impressive. I was kind of hoping that at least one of those rats or the Phantom might survive, but unfortunately they don't. I can get rid of the Construct for free again because both my Gurgle pots are dead, so there's no possibility for a combo there. And now I don't need to care about any of his units. I need to push my advantage. And now I've at least equalized the damage, and he still needs to deal with my Terminus. I do know that he can clear my Terminus off the board by sacrificing his Spider, but he needs to sacrifice his Spider and then Acid Influx, so it's likely that he will not be able to get another minion on the board to benefit from that +1. And there's no way I could have cleared that Spider off. Additionally, this sets me up for playing my second Terminus next turn, and because he Acid Influxed here, which is not too surprising, that halfway through the game he would have one in his deck. If he doesn't have the other, you see I was thinking about that, I'm thinking about that, I'm like, what's the odds that he has the second Acid Influx in his last 12 cards? And I decide that I'm going to If he has it, then we traded 7 mana for 6 mana. It's not the end of the world. We'll just kind of reset. But if he doesn't have it, then I'm gonna have a strong advantage heading into basically the end. And overtime will start next round. So it's a worthy risk. Terminus is cheap enough that it's pretty much never. It's really hard to clear Terminus off the board cheaply enough that it gives you an advantage. So he's shown that he doesn't have the acid influx in his hand. Now, if I go forward and I take off that wolf, um, he could play his own Terminus and clear my Terminus off, but I can't really do anything else with the Terminus. I'm not close enough to get it to the crystals this turn. Um, I have my own acid influx to deal with his Terminus, although because I ran out of mana, I myself am almost fall into the trap. Oh, actually, I didn't because it's overtime, so I will have mana to clear out the acid, use the acid influx to take out his Terminus should he play it, which he does. But now that's his whole turn. I can acid influx and then push my hammer unit up to deal damage. And when we're in overtime, it's not necessarily all about having board control. It's not necessarily about clearing units. It's about just pushing as much damage as you can, however you can, as fast as you can. So I'm not worried about whether or not this queen is going to die. I'm just looking at other options I can do to push damage. But I decide in the end that this Terminus needs to die because unfortunately, if I don't kill the Terminus, it deals with my hammer unit too efficiently. And instead now he's got 10 mana to figure out how to deal with the hammer unit. And more importantly, he's got to deal with my units during overtime. He's not killing my crystals. And I've been able to build a lead in crystal damage. So my goal is just to keep him on the back foot, and every turn we're chipping away at least 2 damage at each other. And since I'm ahead, if we just keep trading 2 and 2 and 2 and 2, his will die first. So that's how I'm thinking about the game at this point. He's going to throw it on a lot of rats. I was kind of hoping that he might not be able to take that hammer person off the board, but he's got a really nice combo here with the 2 rats and the skull. I used to run the skull occasionally, but I found it. I feel like it's too expensive. It's 6 mana for a card that is a combo piece. Um, I thought it was just tough to. It wasn't reliable enough, and my deck already has enough combos that kind of rely on cards being in your hand together. So adding another combo piece just felt unreliable. So I took it out. So here's another opportunity to push some crystal damage. It's really nice buff with the spider. Loki is again another card that is so good. 5 mana, but pretty much always going to do 4 damage every time. Especially in this deck, you could potentially bump him up and hit the crystals. And I thought about doing that, but am ignoring his wolf and just going full damage. But if I did that, then I would lose the damage from the 2/4 spider because he would have to have cleared the rat in front of him. So instead, I just clear his whole board and leave 3 units on the board and also take out his first crystal, which is still a very strong play. But again, the theme of this end-game strategy is keep him on the back foot. He hasn't had any unit over near my crystals to do any permanent damage to that. And as long as we're just trading 2 here, 2 there, back and forth, these crystals are gonna die before mine do. So he has that Revive Animals card, which I'm really jealous because I do not have that card yet. If I did, then it would absolutely be in this deck because it's insanely good. It's a global revive on all your animals for 3 mana. So that card's even better than the Council Revive spells, especially in an animal deck like one that I'm running. This year I'm almost out of cards. I'm not going to be able to draw any more cards because my deck is empty, but I can push 2 more damage to his crystal with Vermin, the Rat King, and then I would only need to survive 2 more turns before my fatigue damage will take him out to 0. So all I really need to do is clear his units off the board, and I've got 13 HP total on my crystals, and he's got 2 turns to basically deal with all of those, which I suspect will be very difficult, especially because I know that his Rat King's dead, so there's not going to be any magical 12 damage crystal combo coming out. Which is something otherwise you'd have to really be aware of, because with the way that the damage is split, if he had that combo, it would be an instant kill on my crystals with the current HP. Instead, he clears my board, which is fine. I don't need a board anymore. I just need to not die. And I can spend my last cards because I know that this is his last turn, so if he can't kill me, then it's over. And I drop the crying face because I've used all of my cards. I have no cards left. But I suspect that he can't end me, which it's clear that he cannot. Anyway, so thoughts on this game. Overall, he really missed a big opportunity early game with that Terminus that I couldn't remove. I think if he pressed that more aggressively, he would have rolled me over really, really quickly and just absolutely steamrolled me from there. Other than that, it was a pretty tight game, back and forth, and that's kind of how Dark Elf goes. Hope you enjoyed this game. Thanks for watching, and check out some of my other videos, and check out Bitcly's channel as well if you have not already. I'll see you next time. Cheers.